This is Local Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance in the San Gabriel Valley. Today we are joined by Jim Osterling. He is the clerk of the Board of Trustees for Pasadena City College. And I want to speak with you about media relations. Look, there's no doubt that elected officials and the media have sometimes a tense relationship. I think the new president has maybe turned that up a bit in terms of that tension, but I think many of us are really just looking to speak in a friendly and respectable manner about the facts before the public. But PCC was looking at changing the way elected trustees interact with the media. Talk to us about a proposal that had been put forward at the end of last year.
So Brad, we had a motion, an item on our agenda that would change our bylaws, and the essence of the change would be is that we would, in community college speak, we would speak with one voice.
Okay.
And that is a fancy way of saying that after a decision had been made by the 7 trustees, regardless of whether the vote was unanimous or divided, that the president of the Board of Trustees only would be allowed to speak to the media, and if a trustee wanted to speak to the media, they needed to get the permission or at least notify the superintendent before they did so. That's the essence of the bylaw change that was proposed.
Now, I'm in the media, so I do have a bias here. But it seems odd to me that that would be proposed in that you are both individually elected and you also represent certain areas. You're not at large. So it seems questionable that only one of the 7 who represents 1/7 of the district would be able to speak to the media.
Well, I agree. I'm the elected official for seat number 2, so I represent East Altadena, all of Sierra Madre, Northeast Pasadena. We have 6 other trustees,
right.
And each is in their own seat area. And even if a vote on something was 7-0 in favor of whatever, the reasons that each individual trustee might have voted for or against that item could be different. And
yes.
Even if the vote was 6-1 or 5-2 in favor of something, the media wants to know, and they have the right to know.
Right.
And we have a responsibility to our constituents, I believe, to communicate to the voters and the taxpayers in our district and let them know what's going on and why we voted. Yeah.
What also raised the ire of many was that there was a provision in the motion that focused on a distinction between controversial and non-controversial issues. So the motion said if the issue was controversial, that the president especially should be the only voice, but if it's non-controversial, I guess you could seek permission to speak.
Right, and seek permission was stronger than the wording, just to clarify. It was just that we had to notify the superintendent. There's a practical element of that, and that is the media contacts us with questions, and it's awkward and unnecessary that we would be required to contact the superintendent and let him know. That's just not the dynamic.
And are you supposed to, under this motion, notify the superintendent before you speak?
Yes.
So the call comes in, hold on, I'm going to go call the superintendent.
Yeah.
On top of that, who decides what's controversial?
Well, that's correct. The word controversial is subjective, so whether something is controversial or not is
but honestly, who does decide? I mean, was there something?
The motion didn't say, and that's, you know, controversial is a very subjective word. But let me drill down even deeper. The superintendent reports to the trustees.
Right.
We are the boss of the superintendent. And so we would now be required to notify our
subordinate.
Subordinate, thank you, that we were going to speak to the media about something.
And remember, a few years ago, the superintendent was under a cloud, allegedly, and so if you had been contacted about his situation, I mean, that just seems to create tension and conflict.
And also, to be candid, the issues that the media is interested in covering are the controversial issues.
Whatever that may mean,
yes,
because I don't know what controversial means, but be that as it may.
And yes, we have a great superintendent currently, but you can't always guarantee that that's the case, and you're correct. In the past, we had a superintendent who was trying to control.
Right. But now, is there any law, regulation, court precedent that says if you're elected to office, somehow you forfeit certain First Amendment rights?
No, I'm not a legal scholar, but I believe the answer is no. And I do believe the bylaw, as we wrote it, probably violated the First Amendment rights of both the individual trustees and the media's right to know.
When the media broadly got word of this, the hue and cry was pretty dramatic. We had editorials coming out talking about how this was putting a muzzle on elected officials, calling it unconstitutional, stifling dissent. This was not only from student media, but from adult media. Although the students at PCC are adults, but you know what I'm saying.
I do.
Talk to us about that media firestorm.
We're blessed in Pasadena in that we have a lot of different local media outlets, especially given what's going on in the media industry generally, that
consolidation,
that cover our region. And I think it's tremendous that they care about what's going on in our city council, in our K-12 district, and at PCC.
And there was a big concern that this provision, if passed, would decrease transparency in an era where we know, as we said, the last superintendent had been alleged to have not been transparent. I think I'm saying it correctly. There had been some embezzlement questions, not related to him. And so there were some concerns there.
Correct.
So what happened? What happened?
Well, what happened was, I think in large part due to the media firestorm, I think the PCC Board of Trustees, all of us collectively, received a very strong a firestorm from our local media, and I think appropriately so. So we have tabled that bylaw, thankfully, and we appointed a little subcommittee of the board to investigate. We may come back with some.
And it's interesting, one of your trustees, I know, Anthony Fellow, he's a professor of journalism.
Correct.
And so, I mean, this is kind of his area. Is he on the committee? Do you know? Whatever, but be that as it may.
Yes, I believe he'll be part of that.
It is interesting that you do have kind of this expert in this direct field on your board. It's fortuitous.
And coincidentally, on the day that this came up, it was no conspiracy. Dr. Fellows and Hoyt Hillsman, who's also a media expert, happened not to be present. So it was just not a good day to bring it up.
So it's tabled for now. We'll see what happens. I want to thank you for joining us, bringing this to our attention. I'm glad to hear it ended the way it did. I admit I'm biased on this one issue. I'm a neutral journalist, but I want free access. His name is Jim Osterling. He's the clerk of the Pasadena City College District. My name is Brad Pomerance. It's Local Edition.